So my favorite kind of unmasking is when you're dealing with a really difficult or angry customer and they ask to speak to the manager and you get to say, I am the manager. I've been a manager for quite a few years, and so I've had many opportunities to do this, and it's just so satisfying. There's one occasion in particular that really sticks out to me. What I manage is a classified advertising section of a newspaper. So I manage the whole department. And a few years ago, we were working on building a website where customers could like go online and submit their own ads, like a self-service portal kind of thing. And I was tasked with entering test ads for every single classification. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of ads. It took me months to get through them all. And to try and get through them quickly, I would usually just enter a bunch of letters and numbers to take up the space and just like get through the ad and then start over. But for some of them, I had to put in actual words that might appear in that type of category, just to get an idea for spacing. So for example, I was putting in a car ad under the cars for sale classification, and I would put 2009 Honda Civic, and I'd put my phone number because in the test ads I had to put the phone number to get through. So I just did that hundreds and hundreds of times with every different type of ad. The developers also wanted some ads with a border, some ads with a highlight, an ad with a picture, because customers would be able to use all these features, and I needed to make sure that everything worked properly. The only picture I had on my computer was a picture of my dog. She's a husky and she makes these like really ridiculous faces. And so it's a picture of her like upside down, and she's like, it's a close up where she's smiling and you can like see all her teeth. It just looks really ridiculous. And so that was what I used in the test ads. And again, all of this was just to fill space and get through. Um, so I scheduled all my test ads for December 1st because it was a date that was several months out, so that we had plenty of time to check everything we needed to check. And it was a date that was easy to remember so that we could go and cancel all of the ads so that they wouldn't print. And so after I entered all my test ads, they would go off to the billing department, who would check and make sure everything looked good on their end. And from there it would go to the production department, who obviously wouldn't put the ads into production, but they would just make sure that the process worked when we went with the live site. And then the next step and final step would be just doing a big batch cancellations of everything that was scheduled for December 1st, because those were all our test ads. So I wake up one morning to a phone call. It's December 1st. And a gentleman is asking about my 2009 Honda Civic. And I took a minute or two to understand what he was talking about, until he referenced the picture of the husky. And my stomach sank, because I instantly knew that one or several hundred of my test ads were printed in the newspaper. So I freaked out, looked at that day's paper, and found that thankfully it was just the one paper, the one ad that printed, but it printed on the top right corner of the paper, like just right there where your eye goes. It was bold, it was highlighted, it had the ridiculous looking picture, like this thing was screaming for attention. I had dozens of phone calls that day, back to back, nonstop. And people didn't know I worked for the paper. They thought I was just like pulling a prank or just doing something funny. And so I got all kinds of different phone calls. Some people were asking like, are you selling the car? Are you selling the dog? Like, I might be interested, you know, what's really on the table here? And there was one call where a woman, for whatever reason, was horribly upset or like offended by the ad somehow. And I explained to her, you know, I'm really sorry. I actually work for the paper. It was a test ad. It wasn't supposed to print. You know, it's not a big deal. I'm really sorry. And somehow that made it worse. She said, oh, you work for the paper? That's even worse. You're making your own product look like a joke. You're not taking it seriously. And I said, again, it was a mistake. I'm sorry that this has somehow upset you. That was not my intention. It's not going to run any more days. Again, sorry. She said, I want to talk to your manager. And so I said, I am the manager of the department. And she said, well, that's unacceptable. That makes it 3 times worse. And so I got to unmask to her, number one, that I worked for the paper, and number two, that I was the manager. And here's the thing about unmasking. Once you take off your mask to someone, you can never put your mask back on. They will always know who you really are. And in that moment, what I wanted to say was, lady, you're insane. This is ridiculous. Like, I'm not even going to waste time talking to you. But I had to maintain, I am a manager. I work for the paper. I want to, look good. Your customer's always right. You're right. This is so offensive and horrible. And you're totally right to be upset. And that just did not appease her at all. So eventually I just said, look, are you interested in buying the car or the dog? Because if not, I've got hundreds of other phone calls to return. Got her off the phone. These phone calls would continue for weeks. Luckily, she was the only one who was difficult. Everyone else was like, thought it was funny and was joking. The ad only ran one day, but people just kept looking at it, kept sharing it with people maybe. So I just got so many calls. So here I am a few years later. I still have my 2009 Civic. I still have my Husky, and I've never, ever made that mistake again. Thank you.